Welcome to episode number 20 of the Austin Downbeat. I'm Kat, your host. Thank you so much for watching. And I can't believe we've made it to episode 20. So that went by kind of fast. We're going to start our show with a rundown like we always do. This covers July 5th through the 11th. So tonight, July 5th, Darden Smith, my guest 2 weeks ago, is back from his European tour. Looks like he had a lot of fun over there if you've been following him on his social, but he's at Saxon Pub tonight. So be sure to go out there and see him. Also, the Shooks band is at Sea Boys tonight. Thursday night, Urban Heat, my guest today, is at the Parish. Also, Uncommon People playing Thursday night at the Spider House Ballroom. They're going to be, all five of them, they're so cool. All five of them are going to be on in a couple weeks, maybe even next week, maybe. I can't remember. But yes, they're coming on. Friday, July 8th, the Bell Sounds is at 310 ACL Live with SL Hauser. Saturday, July 9th, Western Youth is at Peggy's on the Ledge. And Dossie is playing Saturday night at the Austin Beer Garden. And then last but not least, Sunday, July 10th, David Shabani, whom I just interviewed, and he'll be on in a couple weeks, is at the South Congress Hotel. Super cool guy. This week's guest is Urban Heat. So we don't have the whole band. We were supposed to, but kind of last minute, Kevin and Pax couldn't join us. So it's just with Jonathan Horstmann. And I'm really, I was watching this conversation back and I'm really proud of this conversation. I love the places that it went. We talk obviously about music and post-punk, the time period versus the sound, how they have chosen to kind of dive into that genre and are continuing to evolve their sound. It's really interesting how Jonathan, Kevin, and Pax each have a very specific entry point into the band and what they're creating. And I love that they all honor that space. It's a very sustainable kind of relationship that they've created. If you're an 80s kid like me and you love that kind of synth post-punk sound, they definitely bring it, but they have just the coolest fingerprint on it. Really super excited about these guys and seeing what they do. So Jonathan, we also talk about parenting. It comes up kind of organically. And I will say his daughter Tuesday, after we stopped recording, hopped in his lap and we stayed on Zoom just so we could chat. And she's absolutely precious and he's such a wonderful father. So kind of a cool little section on parenting and how he approaches it. And then back to the music, of course. So they are doing an EP release later this month, July 26th, the music comes out. And then July 30th at Hotel Vegas, I want to make sure I have that right. Yes, Hotel Vegas, July 30th is their EP release party. I will be there. Please come. If you see me, say hi, give me a hug. And I'm so excited to see them live because they have such a great reputation for their live shows. So that is it. Lots of good stuff in this conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Next time we'll get Kevin and Pax to join as well. Well, welcome to the show, Jonathan Horstmann, 1/3 of Urban Heat.
1/3 is here. Hi, Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to meet you. And we should say Kevin and Paxel. Is Paxel the right pronunciation?
Pax, just
it's
Pax.
Just Pax. Okay.
Yeah.
Such a cool name. So Kevin and Pax couldn't be with us, but we're so lucky to have you. And I'm so glad that we could do this and make it happen. I know you guys are really busy lately.
Yeah, a lot more busy than we used to be. That's for sure.
Well, that's good. I have a lot I want to talk to you about. You know, you guys are kind of like, you know how sometimes like a book will just sort of come across your lap and just land you, like you don't even really remember where you got it from. That's how I see you guys. I don't remember how I heard about you. I don't remember how, but as soon as I heard your stuff, I was like, what is this? You know, like being an 80s kid and just what you guys do and your sound, I'm very, very interested in it. And I'd love to kind of unpack it because that post-punk 80s synthesizer, it is like, it just goes into my DNA when I listen to it. I'm like dancing in my bathroom, getting ready. And then just also just feeling so nostalgic for so many bands kind of come floating into my consciousness of like things I haven't heard in so long. So it's like, it's its own thing, but yet it is such a reminder of everything that formed me musically as a kid and a young adult. So post-punk, I feel like, is a fairly wide genre. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, because it initially was used to define, it was more about a time period almost than
Right.
just a specific sound. And so you kind of had this kind of like more, I don't want to say more accessible, but it was like music that kind of started lending itself more towards song and melody, and kind of like holding on to a punk attitude, but kind of started having a little bit more of a polish to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, synthesizers definitely came into the mix, but you have like a lot of post-punk bands that didn't use synths at all,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then I think that kind of split into, then you had the kind of like new wave, which was kind of post-punk, but then even more of that like pop sheen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got like really fun stuff like the Talking Heads and Devo and things like that. And I think we kind of I guess we kind of play with all of it,
Yeah.
and it's fun, and trying to see what sort of sounds with like modern production techniques, and like, I love like 808 like trap hats and stuff like for breakdowns. And so it's sort of like, what can I take from modern music and kind of combine with some older stuff, and sort of we're always thinking like, what is the sound of the future? Like, what's the
Mm-hmm.
future sound like? And I think that it's kind of a combination of sort of like everything.
Yeah, because things tend to, I mean, I've been alive long enough. I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my 40s. I've been alive long enough to see things come back around. So the future is really in music and fashion and art. It's the past coming back and kind of resurfacing in a way, but then there's other new things being folded into that. Sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I read an article. Kevin shared an article, a Stereo Gum article with me today, that had said that it was kind of about the Kate Bush like running up that hill, like how it's having a resurgence. And even before that moment, like 70% of the market share in music has been older songs.
Mhm.
And even though like there's still like really strong performing newer artists, there's still, people are rediscovering a lot of old music, and it's easier to find it than it ever has been. You don't have to go digging in crates to find obscure tracks. You can just like go through Spotify or SoundCloud and find all kinds of sounds and all kinds of inspiration. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting time. I think it's a really interesting time to be a musician.
Yeah. And I also think as a listener too, like take running up the hill, Kate Bush's song. I knew that song. I knew the Kate Bush version, but I don't know if you've heard of Meg Myers. Do you know Meg Myers?
Mm.
Well, she's fantastic. I kind of think you might dig her. She did a cover of that's been on the radio on like the alternative stations over the last couple of years. It's fairly new that she put that out, and it's so funny because she kind of was ahead of the trail a little bit by
Right.
recovering that song, and she puts such a Meg spin on that. But I hadn't really heard anyone cover that song until Meg did it. And then she's on K-Rock and she's touring. She's touring with Billy Idol now. And like,
Oh,
so
wow.
my point being, like, sometimes as listeners, we sort of, especially like masses of listeners, I feel like we kind of need people to show us what we haven't seen. I can go on Spotify, but I don't know what I don't know. And so what's cool is like bands like you, that like yours, that bring that whole energy and vibe kind of back up to the surface. And it not only entertains, but I think it educates too, of like, hey, there's a whole world of what we're influenced by that's there, like, and I feel like it's a real education on top of entertainment, all the while having your very own sound. I've never heard anyone with your voice and your own unique thing. It's like you still get your fingerprint.
Thank you.
It's really cool.
I'm really glad we do.
Yeah. I mean, you were like, I mean, every piece of music I listen to is going to flood me because I'm very musically motivated with memory and stuff. But I mean, I'm always flooded by music. But yeah, like such a great sound. And what I love is the contrast that you guys bring. This kind of heavy, real, I don't even know the words for it, but just like this kind of real driving kind of beat and sound. But then you come up, those synths just add that brightness, and then your vocal, and then it's organized, but it's contrast. And for an 80s kid, it's just like, I love it. I love it.
Oh, I'm
It's
so happy it works for you.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stop gushing. Yeah.
No.
It's just nice to hear. I guess it's just really refreshing, for me to hear music like that, because your sound is, I mean, it's not, it's not what you hear all the time. So it's just really refreshing to me.
It is. I found it very curious when, when we were submitting the song, at least the last single, Have You Ever, we were submitting it out to bloggers and playlisters and things like that. And, the biggest thing that we would get back, the biggest takeaway was that it was, not of what people were trying to push out right now, And so
Right.
you could get a little discouraged with that. But then we have we had our TikTok audience, when they heard Have You Ever, it was like, this is, it really connects with people. And I feel like there's sort of a disconnect a little bit, at least this is just from my little corner of the world, my purview. I feel like there's a big disconnect between what people actually want musically and what the people who are responsible for pushing music out and giving it to them, what they think people want, if that makes sense. And
It
maybe there's
does.
not a disconnect, but there's I think there's a tide, either a tide change or there's like a large demographic that's kind of being ignored, which I don't think is going to be ignored for very much longer, because they have bank accounts, and they have there's a huge market to tap into. I like that it's so DIY, and it feels like such a small community of artists right now, that everybody's very accessible, and it doesn't feel like there's even the people who are on the top of their game in the genre still feel very accessible, and they'll message you back and stuff.
Mhm.
But I do think that a time might be coming soon where where there is that sort of it kind of blows into the mainstream. And I think the whole Stranger Things phenomenon thing is an interesting thing for that. But at the same time, though, right, you had bands like Survive, who still do the music that isn't licensed on Stranger Things, right? Survive had this huge moment with season 1 with the Stranger Things theme, where everyone's like, oh my gosh, and they're like, oh, and this band's from Austin, and all this, right?
Yeah.
But instrumental of course, kind of synth wave, analog synth music, while it had some growth, it didn't suddenly become top 40, right? So I think it'll be interesting to see how this all sort of plays out when it's when Stranger Things isn't the top TV show that's being streamed.
Yeah.
um it's, I don't know, it's funny to watch.
Yeah, and I think the people pushing the music out, that's not necessarily your audience. I think there's two different realms there, and that's what is kind of one thing to be aware of, and then also kind of the good news, because they're not really your audience. They're just a part of the machine and the tool to get your music out. But thankfully there is the TikTok and the things and the DIY sort of piece where you don't necessarily need to put all your eggs in that basket anymore of depending on people to push your music for you, because you can do it yourself, especially when
Yeah.
you have a great product like you guys do. I mean, one song, I mean, who's the main, do you all write together, or is it you writing those
I'm
sweet
the
hooks?
primary songwriter.
Okay.
The project, it basically came from I don't have a basement, but if you could imagine, somebody in their basement just experimenting with analog synths and stuff and being like,
Yeah.
yeah, I like this. And then just not wanting to play by myself when it comes to being on stage and things. So I brought it to some friends to sort of back me up on stage. And they were like, no, like, you're not doing this as a solo project. Like, if we're doing this, we're fully in this. Like, yeah. And so even though I am the primary songwriter, I take their opinions on things and how they're going to react to a song into consideration before I present it to them. So like Pax, for example, he's a bass player. He always wants everything to be darker and grimier and like less pop. And so there's definitely like that aspect. I've got to deliver that for him. I can't ask him to do anything too poppy. And like Kevin's got like, he's a DJ and a beat maker in his own right. And so he's got like a very like kind of a boom bap sort of aesthetic and like very like hip hop centric mind. And so like as far as like the production and just like the attitude, I think kind of like Kevin and Pax both sort of, I'm just like a strange homeschooled cheese ball. And so they kind of like ground me into like a little bit of like, they give me some street cred, they keep me from doing like a song for Sesame Street or something. Although I still would.
That could be some good bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Urban heat on Sesame Street. It even rhymes. I mean, that's awesome. And so you guys are, 2019 you formed, that's correct. That's what I read. So you're a fairly young band. Did you already kind of, the friends that you took it to, did you already kind of have the in common sort of this general vibe of what the whole vibe of the band? Or did you have to find that a little bit?
No, because, okay, so what happened was Pax and Kevin have both played in other bands over the decades in Austin. We've always been adjacent. We've opened for each other and things. We've never collaborated, right? And I've always wanted to like do some sort of like super group thing where it was like everybody. It ended up just being like one or two people from other bands, right? But so I left. I was in like an electro punk band called Blaxploitation. We'd done that for like 6 years. I got to travel a little bit with it. It was fun. But when my first daughter was born, I left the band, and I needed something that I could play like in my headphones while my daughter slept. And so I started getting into synthesizers because I could like produce music in headphones, like in the next room and like everything good. So I kind of started with, it kind of was like almost like a Nine Inch Nails LCD sound system sort of thing, much more just sort of like much more kick drum and less song based and kind of groove based, with some just like shouted vocals occasionally. And then it just kind of just started writing songs, getting feedback from the guys, and it just sort of evolved into more of what it is now. I think it's still kind of evolving. I'm excited for where it's going. But yeah, I don't think that they had any idea where it was going to head. I think that we all knew that there was some potential with what was going on. And I just really wanted to, for me, it was, the idea of being able to program synths so that I didn't have to have bandmates and have egos and things like that. That was really the appeal of it. So I think that speaks to just how awesome those guys are, that we do end up working well together. It's really special to be an artist and find, a couple of people who have enough faith in your vision to help you see that to fruition, and I'm really, really grateful for that. I think I'm very, very lucky to be in that position.
Yeah. I would say I agree with that. That's a special relationship it's not super common, to find people that you can collaborate with and have it be sustainable, and everyone, it sounds like everyone in the band is really kind of that you're doing a great job. Everyone's doing a great job of just making sure that everyone's their own kind of fabric of who they are and what they like is sort of getting in the mixing bowl,
Absolutely.
Yeah, which says a lot about each and every one of you. So I'm seeing that you've put out kind of pretty consistently a song every couple,
A
maybe
couple of
every
months,
year.
three
Yeah.
months or so. So
Yeah.
initially we were just sort of figuring out what algorithmically and how to release things,
Yeah.
what makes sense for growth. And so I tried doing singles for a long time. So we would have a single. First it was our first single, then 6 months, then another one. Then that one did really well. So we
Oh,
did another one
stay.
like Stay
Stay.
was the first song that we
First one.
released, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later we released That Gun in Your Hand. And that was our first like taste of like algorithmic playlists, and our Instagram blew up, and it was like, oh, this could work. This could work, right?
Yeah.
So then we immediately released another song, and like no one listened to it. and
Dang it.
yeah, and it was a good lesson. And and it's also just like not everyone's going to connect with all of your songs in the same way. um so then we just kind of like every 6 months or so started releasing, and now we have this EP that we're releasing in July. So it's a 6-track EP. We've released 2 songs off of it so far, and then July 26th we'll release the other 4.
Fantastic.
And we're shooting a video on Friday for the lead single off of that, which I think it's going to connect with people differently than Have You Ever. Just Have You Ever is such a it's just a strong song on its own, I think. Whereas the song's called Trust. I think Trust is more of a mood and a vibe. I feel like I think Have You Ever is one that like I feel like when people are scrolling, it like stops them and they're like, oh, I need to check this out. And I think Trust is going to be more of a slow burn.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good thing. We honestly, to be completely honest with you, Kat, I am really okay if our growth kind of plateaus for just a second, because I need to like catch up and catch my breath.
I was going to ask you, I could kind of feel like that was the next thing I needed to ask you was, you mentioned you said first daughter. So I'm assuming you have 2 daughters.
Yes.
Or at least. Okay.
2.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
How old are they?
Tuesday is 4 and Coco is 1.5 years.
Oh my gosh. First of all, those names are fantastic. I bet they're just absolutely gorgeous. Is it so much fun? Amazing. What do you think? Like,
now that the public pools are open, it is awesome. It is awesome. I just know what we have to do every day, all day, every day. And it's
wear them out so they sleep.
Yeah. They're fantastic. Tuesday's a little performer. She is convinced that we're going to have a 3rd daughter. She wants her to be named Jet, and she wants Jet to play the drums so that Coco will play bass. Tuesday's 4, and she's writing songs. She's something special. I mean, everyone's kids are special, but
I know what you mean. My daughter wrote her first song called Pink and Purple at the age of 4 and no 3, with a little guitar from Walmart. And
nice.
Yeah. But sometimes you just have those kids that just emote a little bit differently or more on the outside, and they just kind of give you a lot to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have one of those, and then I have a really quiet one. Yeah.
It's interesting to like sort of to be like, I have been blessed with the job of stewarding this genius.
Yes.
This like special being who's like figuring out how to emote, how to feel things and how to react to them, but also it's time to sort of like to be aware of your surroundings and how your emoting affects others. And she is aware that she knows that she has so much power. And so it's sort of like raising a superhero, and you're trying to it's wild. It's wild. Cause you're like, you could really, really hurt me. You could, and it's
I tell my daughter, use your powers for good, honey. Use your powers for good. That's what I tell her. She's 12 now, but yes. And trust me, it just keeps getting more and more dicey and wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like in bowling, when kids bowl, they put those bumpers up. That's me. I'm the bumpers.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So just bumpers go up and baby, you just fly down that lane and I'm just going to keep you from flying off yeah. So I'm just the bumpers.
I feel like my job is to be the pin.
Yes.
I'm like, come on, just come on. It's safe. You can direct it over here. It's good.
I was just going to say it's safe. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that you said that. It's really nice to hear you say that because I think that's one of our jobs, but that requires, Jonathan, a lot of maturity on your part. And as I'm sure you know, being a parent requires just, it really requires you to muster up as much maturity as you can in any given moment, especially when they get older and then the teen years. I have a 12 and almost 15-year-old, and it gets hard, just as it was before, it's just different, hard. But man, you got to really muster that self work that I've done for me. Like that's when it really comes online. And so it's really nice for you to hear you say that, because that's what it should be, is just you're an absolute soft place for her to land and a safe place for her to feel as deep as she needs to feel. And you can hold it all and you don't have to say anything. You really don't. You're enough just to sit there with your hand on her back and let her feel her feelings and then be on with it,
Yeah, I think what I'm enjoying a lot, and we're trying to remind myself, is I think sometimes our worst parenting comes from, if things happen in public and there's like an element of saving face or embarrassment, right? Like your kid's like throwing a fit at the pool or something, right? And I'm like, okay, how do I talk you down without, you know what I mean? How do I talk you down
disrespecting
so
you?
that,
Yeah.
Right. But also like, there's all these people who are like, we're in their space as well. And like, but also like respect like what you're experiencing and like going through. And I'm finding that just like the more that I just ignore the fact that anyone else exists when I'm with my kids is like the better that, and because my kids will remember those experiences. And like, I don't really, if a stranger remembers that there was a screaming kid, like whatever, but my daughter remembering how her dad handled her not feeling well at the pool, I think that's way more important. And we had to go to the ER once because she was having chest pains or something that just like wouldn't stop. It would turn out to be nothing, but like we went to the ER, like stayed overnight, and the doctor, we were in this room for like 2 hours before they like came to like discharge her, right? And I found the the gloves, a bag of a drawer of gloves, and so filled up. I blew enough glove balloons that like you couldn't touch the floor when the doctor came back in to the room. And Tuesday thought it was so funny. The doctor did not think it was funny, but it was like, she's gonna, this is for her. Like, I'm sorry, like it might be like weird that I'm doing this right now, but like,
Yeah. I love that so much. I was the same. I am the same. And certainly when they were younger, I was the same. I was sitting on the floor in the frozen aisle at the grocery store with my daughter having an absolute meltdown. Just pull the cart over, come out, sit down next to me on the floor and let her feel it, and not giving a shit about what other people think. And I think I'm so glad you brought that up, because I guess I wish more parents had that. I wish they had the courage and the confidence to care more about and treat their kid the way that they would treat another adult, because they would never say to another adult, I can't handle your feeling right now. You go be away from me and then I'll go, like the whole timeout thing or whatever. Like I would never say that to a friend of mine. If it were an adult friend, I would be like, come here, come toward, right? But with kids, we push them away.
No, I think truly
that.
I don't know if it's really on the other parents. I think it's more kind of on the we as a society. I don't think that we hold the family unit in a way that it gets used as like a political sort of pawn when it comes to when we talk about the family and like the importance of like the nuclear, the traditional family values, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It gets used, but like we don't actually put value the family. And like, and it's very apparent, it became very apparent to me, like when I had young children, like looking for spaces where like I could be with them, looking for places to go eat where I could bring my children and not be it be a thing, or like places that have designated spots for children, or just creating spaces with families with young children in mind. If we as a society can do more of that, then it kind of shows adults that, like, you know, we've created a space where it is children centric. And if we create children centric spaces, then we're creating human centric spaces, because these children are our future. So like, we can't just ignore you until you become 18 and then just expect you to plug into, you know, I mean, they're the ones who can have all the good ideas anyway. So like, why not?
Yeah.
You know?
I love it. Although I will say I moved here from California. Don't hate me, everybody. But when I got here, I was like, every single restaurant has a playscape. That was odd and wonderful. So I will say, here in Austin, do you find that it
That's
is
funny. That's funny, because like I'm raising a kid in Austin. I'm like, there's not enough playscapes.
Well, go to California and like, you know, my son, who's the oldest one, like, I mean, and my daughter's so well behaved too, but like, you know, we moved here when she was 3, but like my son was just like so trained to eat how to eat like at a nice restaurant, and so polite and whatever, but there was never anything for kids in LA. Like, you know, there's no playscapes at restaurants, right? And then we move here and we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. My kids didn't know what to do.
I should be thankful for what we have.
Yes. Well, let's get back on. Thank you for that parenting interlude. I think it's really cool to hear and see that side of you. Because I really respect how you're approaching parenting in it. And I don't hear that kind of conversation a lot. And so it's really refreshing to kind of, especially, you know, hear it sort of unprovoked, and that you're approaching it that way. I think you're on a really good path to set up some real emotionally intelligent children, and an emotionally intelligent kind of dynamic and system in your family. So
well, it's really intentional, and it kind of brings it back to the music, because like we got, you know, we had some growth before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened and Coco was born. And so, you know, had things happened differently, I might not have been able to spend so much quality time with Coco as I have been able to, right? And so we found a booking agent. We signed with Atomic Music Group a month ago. And so Ian Watts, he's our agent there, and he's working on regional stuff right now for the summer, but we're doing North American touring starting in the fall. And once that begins, you know, I don't know what, you know, hopefully we get to do it a lot more. You know, that's the plan, the hope, and that will be limiting the time that I do get to spend with my kids. So I think that, you know, it's very intentional for me to the time that I do spend with them now to try and just soak up, you know, squeeze joy out of every little moment. It's interesting being a you know, if I had this many Spotify followers when I was in my 20s, I would probably be such a POS. You know what I mean? Like, I think I think it's good to, I'm older, more tempered. I think I'm ready. I think we're ready to take this on now, you know, even though it's more complex, much more complex, and there's so many more components, and so much more, just the cost of living, so much more money that has to be made, so much more stress. But I guess, you know, the stress never stops. We just get better at dealing with it, and then more stress comes, and then we have to try to get better at dealing with that. But I think we're all of us, as all the members of Urban Heat, I think we're in a really special place right now, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm catching you just on your ascent, and just continued ascent. And it's so exciting. I'm really excited for you guys. So a tour, that's awesome. And then July 26th, the whole EP gets released, but you'll release the other 4 songs.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Okay.
that EP will be released. We'll probably have just like a CD of it because vinyl is, there's a really big
Yeah.
delay in the vinyl industry right now. So I don't know when we will have physical vinyl, but you know, it's all right. We can do flexi discs and tapes, and there's going to be other ways for people to collect physical copies of the music.
Are cassette tapes coming back?
Um, we sell a lot of them.
Really? So
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
When I was designing my logo for the show, I wanted it to be a cassette so badly. I mean, so badly, because that's my jam. That's how I started and listening to music, and all the feedback came back of like, I don't think kids know what that is. And I'm like, oh no, I think they do. Like, I think they really, really do.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
they're like, no, I don't know. So I opted not for it, but like I love the idea of the cassette. And
I think we will see a resurgence in cassettes. One, because of the delays in the vinyl industry. I
Mhm.
think that part of the reason people like collecting vinyl, like yes, the sound fidelity, but I think it's also, I mean, I think it's being able to have a physical artifact brings
Yeah.
you to like this analog place.
Yes.
Um, and cassettes, they will only be for that purpose. The sound quality is just not good. It's just not good, you know. But it's good enough that you can, and you have like the liner notes, you know, and the artwork. You're able to have the little folding thing,
You can
and
hold
they're,
it.
you can
Yes.
hold it. You can hold it.
Yeah.
We are planning on offering what I want to do. I don't want to have a bunch of mass produced ones, but every show we have, people come to the merch booth and somebody's like, oh wow, you guys have cassettes? Like, I don't even think I have a cassette player. And I so badly just want to have a Walkman from Goodwill that I can be like, oh yeah, well, here we also sell these. But
Should.
they'd have to be really expensive, like in order to not be cost prohibitive,
Yeah.
So that's something it's on the
You should have it
it's
be
on the
like if
radar.
you bring a Walkman, you think people can clip it on their belt and like put the things around their neck to your show. Like if you bring a Walkman to the show, you get like half off the cassette or something like that. And
Just
then
for bringing it,
and then
and we'll
have
take a
Walk.
photo with you.
Wait, is Walkman still around the company?
So Sony made them.
Sony.
They're
So
called the Walkman.
have
Yes, there are still
Sony.
Sony Walkmans around.
Yeah, so have Sony advertise it, get them to chip in and work out a deal and then
Oh my
advertise,
gosh.
you make some money. I'm always thinking about how can we integrate branding, but wouldn't that be cool? Then you
It
have a bunch
absolutely
of
would.
people like with Walkmans and you just really like hugging the whole genre and the whole vibe.
Yeah, that might be a little too on the nose.
You're right. That's not very
Just a
punk
little
of
bit.
us.
A little bit. Yeah, there's still the post-punk aspect of it.
Yes, we have to be cool. We can't be,
Yeah.
yeah. You're right. You're right. So when I want to come see you guys so bad because I hear your live shows are just ridiculous. So when are you playing in Austin next? Even if it's far away, just tell me.
Yeah. No, so Austin, we have we'll be at Hotel Vegas on this just got added, Hotel Vegas on Thursday, June 30th. Sorry, my sitter is
No worries.
messaging quite a bit.
Dad.
The so yeah, Hotel Vegas, June 30th, but then also July 30th at Hotel Vegas. That's our EP release party.
Okay,
And we're
well, I'm gonna
having,
push that.
that's going to be a good one. I'm kind of a nerd. I get super involved in, so like I started building guitar pedals a couple months ago because I wanted to understand how they work. And so now I'm getting into like stage lighting and setting up a MIDI programmed light show. And so so July 30th will be our first time debuting the whole like light show in like a small space. Cause like a lot of stages will have their own lights and lighting person, but I want to be able to bring that experience, even if we're playing a small club show,
Yeah.
So that'll be our first time doing that. And I think when I rehearse with the lights and I'm like, this adds so much. This is great.
I'm so excited because your live reputation precedes you. And
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yes. I'm so excited.
So
Okay,
great.
put those down. I will push those dates so hard. And then I'm definitely going to be at the release one in July for sure.
Word.
Awesome.
Do you ever do like on location taping or anything? Because it's probably hard because it's like so loud.
It's hard. It is. Yeah, I mean, I hope one day to do that. That was kind of the goal. Like the first phase when I created this show was just obviously this. Um, but with the goal of like a next phase of being able to kind of cat on the street, like take it and really go. But it is loud and
Yeah.
it's hard. And then it's just me. And then so it's just you know, I'm just staying really grounded in like this right here, connecting with you, people like you doing such amazing things in music. Like that's just right. That's all I really care about at this moment. It's just having really good conversations and really learning about you and supporting you the best that I can. And then also telling people how they can support you. So
Mm.
that's really the intention always. But I hope to be able to provide more content like that for sure. I think that'd be really fun. I think I just need a little bit bigger, more than a one-person team.
Yeah, and I mean, it's smart that you have that approach, because I think, at least for myself, I get excited about something and I try to expand like all the offerings or like everything
Right.
like too quickly and don't end up doing one thing really well.
Well, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm a little bit of the Da Vinci syndrome as well of like, okay, well, let's do this, and that. And I got to calm myself down and just go, okay, come back to the intention of why I'm even doing this. And that is for this, what's happening right now in this moment.
mhm.
This is the only reason why I'm really doing it, is because I see so much value in conversations like this. And I just really want people to be, to have a deep understanding about the people in our city that are doing the things that you guys are doing. I mean, it's just very
Mhm.
valuable to me. So I always come back to there, but I am tempted. I'm like you a lot, where I'm just like, I
Yeah.
mean, look at me with the Walkman thing. I'm like, we could do this and we could do
Right, right,
that.
right.
Like,
Well, because
calm
I'm like,
down,
you
Kat.
could like IG live, you could do like an
Yeah.
IG live with with like one of those, I think I've got one somewhere, one of those like clip-on lav mics that'll go right into your phone. So like the audio at least is just like right next to your mouth,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll try it at your party.
It's a thing. It's a
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
I love it. Thank you for that idea.
sure, sure.
Well, speaking of how we can support you, we as we wrap up a little bit, what is the best way to support Urban Heat other than obviously going to shows and buying merch, which I know is really important to do.
Yeah.
How else
Yeah.
can we support you?
Right now, I mean, it's so such good timing for you to ask me that, because that's something that I need to be thinking about more,
Mm,
how to be able to monetize this like newfound sort of audience that we have.
yeah.
Which obviously it's not only about monetization, right? But we
No,
want to
but
be
you
able
have
to
to feed
support
those
this. Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
children of yours. So
That's true. They eat a lot. Um, the So our band camp is where folks can like pay what they want for the catalog, for the music.
yeah.
So that's a great way to support.
Yeah.
Um, I need to Artists will do this, at least like influencers will do this. They'll have like a link to their Cash App or their Venmo like on their TikTok bio. And I've always been like, that's interesting. But then
Mhm.
as we're growing and stuff, I'm like, huh, that is interesting. Like just
Yeah.
having a space because we aren't having any sort of fundraiser right now. We don't have, it's like, yeah, it's like you have to buy tickets to come see us live. I'm working on getting enough merch so that we can put it online and we won't sell out of things and not have stuff for the live show.
Mhm.
But honestly, that's just going to be like, even if we had that problem, it would only be a problem for like 2 weeks and we'd get enough shirts made to have both. So I just need to bite the bullet and just put that stuff up there. We
Yeah.
are, not to jump on the whole NFT thing, but we are going to be releasing some NFTs. I think that it makes sense for our brand. I think that with our style of music,
Mhm.
some glitchy, really electronic, thinking about I produce a lot of music that doesn't make it anywhere, that just stays here. And so I think NFTs could be an interesting way to sort of offer that music.
Yeah.
And, if people think that this, that our stock per se is rising, then
Yeah.
folks might be interested in investing in it like that. I don't know. I'm constantly thinking about how we can how to monetize in a way that stays true to like the brand and just doesn't feel like we're just becoming like a capitalist machine sort of
Okay.
thing, because I mean, it's funny, bands will, touring is like so hard on the environment, and it's interesting and kind of ironic that with my worldview that I would want to be a musician when being a musician has, at least the way that we do it now, has so many like drawbacks for the environment, as far as like even like because you're trying to get your merch at like the cheapest cost, and like you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
all these decisions that you make, you start seeing why everyone else cutting costs and that trickling down to you, like why they do that, because you are like the CEO of your own business, right? So you're like, how can I maximize our output for minimal input,
Yeah.
and it's a I don't know, if I could just put out music and play shows and have people donate instead of there having to be, you know what I mean, just more of like an energetic exchange, and rather like here's the dollar value to things, like I would
Right.
love to just exist in that way. I don't know if that's sustainable, if that's like viable. um but yeah, it's funny, you just asked how else can people support us, and I went on
No,
that kind of
no,
tangent.
I think it's great. Again, I think there's a lot of value in just watching you kind of work that out for yourself and have that conversation out loud, because you're not the only one, I mean, the business is changing, life is changing, the planet's changing. Like we're just, it's just a new day kind of every day in this. And so you're not the only one trying to figure it out. And I think about it too, just as far as like how, I mean, as you're talking, I'm just like, my wheels are turning of like, there has to be something we come up with, right? To make it easier for artists, especially in this city. 'Cause that's, we want to support the industry, but we also want to support the artists and the community of it, right?
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
the
absolutely.
artist can actually afford to live in and then keep giving to the industry piece. And so um, it's something I think about a lot. So you're not alone in that. And I think you'll find your way. You've created something really special. And I will have to have Kevin and Pax on again with you. Because I'd love to
Yeah,
meet them too. It seems like just the three of you are not only great musicians, but just really cool people as well. And so that's
they just make me seem so much cooler.
well, I must meet these men. I love it. So next show is June 30th at, what did we say? Hotel Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you have listeners in Houston, but we will be there on the 24th at Axelrad on the
Oh
24th
yeah, I saw that on your stories.
of
Okay,
June. Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, good. Well, I will push that. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Austin Downbeat and sharing your story and a little peek behind the curtain.
It's so nice to meet you, and thanks
Yeah.
for letting us go here, there, and everywhere with our
I love it. These are my favorite kind of conversations when I'll hang up from this and just be like, that was just such a good conversation. I don't, so you never know what you're going to get. So
Mhm.
I appreciate your flexibility to dance all over the place.
Hell yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, I'm going to see you at one of these shows you have coming up. And until then, we'll say goodbye for now. So that was it for this episode of the Austin Downbeat. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Jonathan Horstmann from Urban Heats.